What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's been a whole month since I last talked to y'all, and I'm very excited to be back. Back in London finally, and we're gonna have a whole month of really good content, and of course, for all the future months going as well. All right, so let's jump right into it. The first thing I want to talk to you now that I'm back in London is about this. This right here is one of my most new purchases that I've made, and I actually bought this in New York City at a famous bookstore called Strand. This right here is Bruce Davidson's Subway. Bruce Davidson is a photographer who was based in New York City at one point, and he put together this extremely famous body of work about life in the underground in New York City in the 80s. And this book is one of my absolute favorites. As a lifelong New Yorker, of course I live in London now, but I'm born and raised in New York. I love this book because it showcases the life in the subway, which is something that I know very well. I wasn't alive in the 80s, or at least not for very long in the 80s. I was born in 88. But this time period that he showcases was kind of the, let's say, most vibrant time in New York City's subway history. And vibrant might be an interesting word given that the subway itself at this time was covered in graffiti. It's probably pretty dirtier than it is now at least. And there's a lot of wild stuff going on down there in the subway. So Bruce Davidson took it upon himself to get down there and document as much of this as he possibly could. However, the way he did it is what's most notable about this book, given that he did it in such a beautiful and creative way. So let's go ahead and jump into this book. First thing I want to show you, of course, is the cover. And this cover basically summarizes what this entire book is about. This book is ominous, it's kind of creepy, it's grimy, it's intriguing, it's interesting, it's cinematic, it's colorful, all of those words. And there's a lot of kind of contrasting words in there, but this book has it all. And New York City as a city kind of is that. You know, the subway is a bit of a microcosm of New York City because it's extremely diverse. All of the people that live in New York City kind of bump into each other in the subway, and it's kind of the equalizer. So Davidson captured this very perfectly. And he did it in a very interesting way. He actually used an automatic SLR camera, probably a really nice one for the time. I don't know if it was a Canon or a Nikon, but it was one of those two. And he actually had a flash mounted to it as well. And he sometimes also had the flash connected by cable that he would hold in hand. And that's very important because for street photography, when you're using a flash, you know, you're not kind of hiding anywhere. Everything is very obvious. So for his shots, he basically always asked for permission. He would in fact show people a little booklet with all of his kind of old school photos that he could show off and say, hey, these are the kind of things I've been working on. Can I get your portrait? And, you know, clearly it worked well for him because he got a lot of really amazing stuff. But the flash itself is very important because it kind of did two things. One, he could control the light of the scene, and by controlling the light, he can create certain moods. And then the other thing he could do was balance the exposure of the outside and the inside. That might not matter as much kind of when you're down deep in the tunnels, given that it's kind of dark outside, but a lot of the New York City subway actually goes above ground, and at that point you can see the city itself during the daytime and kind of the early evening, sunset, all of those different times of day. So he was able to balance those exposures with the interior of the subway cart, and that just results in some really amazing stuff. So let's go ahead and dive into the actual contents of this book. All right, so the first thing to note about this book is how saturated the images are. So we're gonna turn to a couple images here in order to kind of give you a picture of what that actually means. You know, we have right here on this side, we've got a very beautiful image. And it's very classical lighting because, again, the light is coming from above, from up here. He basically bounced a flash off the roof of the actual subway car. But then you look at the colors here, and you've got beautiful reflections on the doors here, this kind of like reddish hue. You've got the woman's hair itself that's got a little bit of an orangey red tint, and then her lipstick just catches just a little bit. And then, of course, outside here, we talked about earlier how he balances exposures. You have right here the actual sunset in New York City. Could be sunrise even, who knows, but I'm gonna assume it's sunset. But that combination there is just so much color in this image. And this is kind of signature of this book and the collection of images. There's just tons of color everywhere. Let's look at a couple more here. Let's go to page 37. You can already see how many beautiful images are here. This image is also very nice and colorful. You've got right here two women, one wearing a yellow golden dress, the other one's got like an orangey red one. And this is, again, very emblematic of what you see in this book. Tons of color. And I don't know if this is correct, but I think he shot a lot of these images on slide film. And therefore, he was able to pull some incredible color out of all of the images. Let's go to another one here. We'll go to page 68. And this image is one of my favorites. So if you look right here in this image, you've got, again, red doors. And a lot of the old trains in New York City actually had a red exterior and interior on the actual metal. So that's what you see right here. and it's got this very interesting kind of hue to it. And then her outfit just pops out of here. This girl has darker skin, so her skin falls a bit more to the shadow, especially because the lighting is very minimal. It's only coming from kind of up here downwards. So this side of her skin is nicely bright. You see those big highlights here, but then this side of her body is a bit more in shadow. But her clothes just pick up the hints of light that are bouncing off the ceiling. You see this bright golden yellow here and yellow on her top. You know, it's just awesome. You see some of it right here as well. This image I don't find to be as interesting, but you know, you've got the yellow and then you've got the red of the rose. But then the background falls very kind of muted. The background is very kind of eerie and a bit dark, maybe even like almost desaturated in a way. So it's very interesting how you get these huge pops of color, but then you also get kind of a bit of a dark backstage or background for the images. All right, let's look at one more here. So we'll go to page 114. I mean, you can just see the kinds of crazy stuff that he's catching here. This is actually all, can't show you that because it's pretty graphic for YouTube, but you know, we'll keep it moving. These two images right here, I love this combination right here. This is probably my favorite combo set in the book. And they're two very aggressive scenes, but then they also have aggressive color. And I think the color plus the aggressive kind of scene just captures you and kind of makes you, it forces you to kind of reckon with the image and try to figure out what's going on and just kind of digest the view. So on the left here again, you've got those classic red doors that I've been pointing out already. And then you've got this awesome light that pops from his hat. Of course, the red and the red here match, but then the ceiling light, again, he's bouncing light kind of off the ceiling and coming down towards his subject. So it creates that moody lighting where you've got a lot of contrast in the shadowy parts of the face. And then you also get a lot of texture here in the actual muscles. It's great lighting for this kind of stuff. But then it allows for certain key things to pop, just like that hat. And of course, on this side over here, you know, another aggressive scene, you've got what is either staging or someone messing around or an actual crime that he caught. I doubt this was an actual crime because if you catch this on photo right here, especially with this beautiful quality, like this guy's done. He's gonna get caught. He's going to jail. It's too much evidence here. So I don't know exactly what's going on, but the images, it looks so realistic, especially because of this guy's expression. But again, let's talk about color. You got this bright red on red on red here. You got the red of the subway. And it's pretty clear that Bruce Davidson loved matching red subjects to the actual red of the doors. You see this over and over and over again. So it's a beautiful combination that he's worked out here, and it works very, very well for him. But yeah, that is a gun pointing at this guy's head. And this looks pretty real. Again, could be a real scene. Maybe this guy was just trying to intimidate him, but whatever was happening, he caught it on photo there with bright flash and just perfect quality.
New York Magazine asked me whether I would like to go with a group of subway undercover policemen who dress and act in such a way to precipitate a robbery. This perpetrator came over to take my camera, but the backup police are in the car with. They look more like a thief than the thieves. Billy, I think his name was, he immediately arrested the guy that was mugging me. So it's really not what it looks like, but it's what it feels like.
So colors everywhere, and I think the colors are what's most striking about most of these images right off the bat, at least visually. The first thing you notice is the color. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is the cinematic nature of this book. A lot of these shots are very well contrived. Actually, just look at this one here real quick. Incredible shot right there. But that's not what I want to talk about. We're going to talk about some cinematic images here. And Bruce Davidson used the flash on his camera very, very explicitly in a way to convey cinematic scenes. So for example, we'll take this image right here. This is one of my absolute favorite images, and it looks so cinematic. We got this wide lens posted up very closely onto this train operator here. And then you look at the composition, you look at the lighting, everything is so explicit and so intentional. You have no idea what this guy's looking at. He might be seeing somebody get on the train who's a little, less than ideal, who's about to cause some problems. He might just be kind of worried about his day, or maybe he's just kind of worried for Bruce Davidson himself, the photographer. This also could have been posed, who knows, but it's a very cinematic look, and it shows off this really, really interesting vibe. It kind of sets the tone for the entire rest of the book. Let's look at another one here. Let's go to page 25. This image right here on the right is probably the creepiest image of all. You see that lady there. She's a street performer, just like this guy on the left. But this guy on the left, he looks cool and intriguing and smooth. This woman here is just creeping me out. I mean, it looks like she's got an eye that's got an issue. You know, I'm not trying to make fun of this lady, but clearly this lady is on a bit of hard times, and it's just like, what is going on here? It's almost a sideshow kind of thing. And I could imagine in a movie, like at this point, this is like The Omen, that when this lady comes through playing this little accordion and then playing some really weird tunes, it's kind of setting the stage to tell you, hey, something really bad is about to happen right now. So that's all I can help but think about when I see this image. All right, we got one more cinematic image that I think we have to look at here. Let's go to page 82. And here we are. These two images right here together actually are really amazing. So the image on the left here, it's just lights. And you know, you get very little here. There's this interesting reflection happening. And I'm trying to move this here so that the reflection of my lights doesn't ruin this. But ultimately, you can barely make out the figure there on the left, but you see those big red lights that are kind of out of focus. It's extremely moody and artistic, and it's beautiful. It gives me like Saul Leiter vibes, actually. I feel like it kind of is that thing where you get pops of color that have very indistinguishable shapes, but it kind of sets the mood. And then with the woman on the right here, it's kind of the same idea. She's a bit blurry, so you can't really see exactly what's going on with her, but it's just very soft, and her expression is almost like she's defeated. It's just very interesting. And then of course you got this tiny little pop of red up here. He just loves the color red, and the red is everywhere. So I love how it just keeps coming in and out of every single image here. All right, so let's look at one last set of images here. And I put my gloves on because it's starting to get a little hot and sweaty in here. Anyways, what I want to talk about now is natural light. And Bruce Davidson features a lot of natural light images in this book. And these natural light images just feature such a different mood that I think actually bring a lot of beauty to the scene in New York City. And the natural light images are kind of the ones that really change the tone of this book, taking you away from the mysterious, creepy, dangerous kind of subway to the more beautiful subway. So the first image I want to look at is on page 59. Let's see, 59, here we go. So that's this image right here. This image on the right is of a girl kind of just posing, and you know, she's dressed up, she's ready to go, and I just love this. You can tell this is like very, very late sunset. You got this beautiful little pink hue that's just kind of reflecting on her face, and this is kind of the last light of the day. So it's a very peaceful image. There's not really anything going on. There's just a lot of lines, and then of course there's the girl herself. And it's just a very nice scene. And you know, this girl does have an interesting look on her face. It's kind of like, you know, a bit mysterious. She's not telling you whether she's happy, sad, or anything. Just kind of a bit blank, but she is puckering her lips just a little bit. So clearly she's posing, she's trying, but the lighting is just so soft. And you know, he kind of hits her with a little bit of fill flash just to kind of bring this together. But you know it's that late sunset light because you can see a lot of the reflections over here. And these little kind of highlights that you see on the side here, they're probably poking through the bars on this side. So it's very, very soft lighting, very flattering lighting, and he accentuates it with just a little hint of flash. But very, very beautiful, and the natural light kind of dominates here. We have some other natural light images here that we can look at. And I think this is literally my single most favorite image in the entire book. This one on the left here. So let me actually see if I can get it in a way where the highlights are from my lighting aren't messing it up. But as you can see right here, this girl is kind of, you know, leaning on the train. First of all, you've got the natural light, as I said. This is just the light that's coming out. You can see that it's a bit diffused. It's kind of cloudy out here, so it's not direct hard light. It's very soft, no like really aggressive shadows, just very smooth kind of rolling shadows. Very blue also, very, very natural kind of hue to it. And then you've got all these lines from the bars on the train. He just set her up so amazingly. It's like she was a model, and he's kind of setting her up to look very, very flattering. You can't see her face directly, you know, it's a very intriguing kind of pose. You don't know who this girl is or what she's about. But then you have all the grit and texture of the train. If you look at the train, you can tell this metal's been decayed very hard. It's been hit by a lot. As you can see here, we're on the water. So a lot of the trains in New York City end up in deep Brooklyn and deep Queens, which is basically out to the beach, to the ocean. And that's where we are here. Some of these trains get very close to the water. As you can see, this one's basically going right over the water. But it's just a beautiful composition. You look at this and you think about kind of the duality of New York City. It's such a beautiful, intriguing place with so many interesting stories and people. But then it's got this very rough exterior that's kind of coarse and like a bit challenging. And this girl, posed here by Davidson, just kind of brings it all together. You've got the rough and tough nature of New York City, then you've got the soft human part of New York City. I'm glorifying the crap out of New York City here. I'm sorry if you're tired of hearing me talk about New York City, but it's true. Everything he's kind of reflecting in these images is true. And this image, when I saw this image the first time looking through the book, I just paused and I could not keep going. I had to keep looking at this image and kind of seeing what's going on. So I love this image, natural light, showcasing kind of the environment. And it's a very different story than what you get here in the front. You know, you still got that air of mystery and that air of intrigue, but you don't know, you know, this is very kind of tough, intriguing in kind of like a scary way. Whereas this one is much more intriguing in a very soft kind of movie way, let's say. I don't know, you can kind of see the visual difference between the two. But yeah, I absolutely love this book. I'm gonna do a quick flip here just so you can see a lot of random things. You know, big, bold images, lots of color, big images, everything. This is awesome. I just really love this book and it was worth every single penny. All right, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed looking through this book. I definitely think this book is fantastic, and I'll probably pick up some other books here and there to showcase to you and show you exactly what I'm looking at and what I'm learning. All right, to the next video, y'all. I'm out.